Humanity's future seemed uncertain, yet the air was thick with defiance. After the shocking decree from the Galactic Council, outlawing humanity from the stars, there had been only silence. But on Earth, that silence was a ticking clock, counting down to something far more dangerous than anyone could predict. The ban on human exploration and interaction with other species was a blow, but it also set the stage for something even bigger: the fight for survival, and perhaps the fight for freedom. In the underground chambers of a hidden base, a small group of human leaders and warriors gathered. Sergeant Michael Graves, a man who had seen too many battles to count, paced back and forth, deep in thought. The news of the ban had spread like wildfire across Earth, stirring old wounds and igniting a fire that had long been dormant. Humanity had always been on the fringes, but now, with the Galactic Council casting them aside, something inside Graves snapped. There was only one way forward: resistance. The Council thinks they can erase us, control us, keep us in a corner of the galaxy. Graves muttered to himself, his fists clenched. But they've made one mistake. They underestimated us. He looked around the room at the faces of his comrades. A diverse group of men and women, all with different backgrounds, but one common goal. Their world had been upended, and they had two choices: bow down to the authority of the Galactic Council or fight back. And fighting back was something humanity had always done best. "This isn't just about Earth anymore," Graves said, his voice strong and steady as he addressed the small council in the room. "This is about every human in the galaxy. We are the last line of defense for our people. The Galactic Council wants us gone, wants us hidden away. But we won't let that happen. We fight." There was a brief silence as everyone exchanged looks. The task ahead seemed impossible. The Galactic Council had its power, its fleets, and its control over vast territories. And humanity, they had just their will, their ingenuity, and a deep-seated hunger to prove they were far more than the Council had ever imagined. But it was enough. It had to be. "We'll need allies," Elena, the leader of the engineers, spoke up. Her sharp eyes never left Graves as she adjusted the tech equipment on the table. "We can't take them on alone. There are other species out there who may share our cause." Graves nodded. The truth of her words settled heavily on his shoulders. They needed to rally others, to create an alliance. But that was no small task. For centuries, the Galactic Council had controlled everything, and most species were too afraid, too dependent on the Council's power, to stand up. "If we can't get the Council to see us as more than just a nuisance," Graves continued, his mind racing, "we need to show them exactly what we're capable of. Every system, every world the Council controls, should be our battleground. We'll hit them in places they never expected." "Exactly," Elena agreed. "But we'll need resources. We don't have enough ships. We don't have enough technology. And most importantly, we don't have enough knowledge. The Council's tech is beyond anything we've ever seen. We'll need to steal that knowledge. We'll need to infiltrate their systems." Graves paused, considering. Elena's words were true. The Council's advanced technology was their greatest weapon. They were decades, perhaps even centuries, ahead of humanity in terms of ships, weapons, and artificial intelligence. But humanity had one thing the Council didn't: resilience. They didn't quit. Ever. "We start small," Graves said finally. "We build our network. We find the tech we need. We gather our people. Then we make our move." He turned to face the map projected on the table. It showed every known galaxy, every system controlled by the Galactic Council, and several locations where rumors of rebellion had begun to emerge. There was a flicker of hope in the map's scattered red marks, hidden cells of defiance, places where humanity's influence still lingered. "We'll hit them in these systems first," Graves said, pointing to the locations. "We get the technology, we get the supplies, we bring back what we can use. Every mission brings us one step closer to creating the army we need. Then we start looking for allies," Elena added. We make contact with the most likely species, those who don't fear the Council. We show them what we've started, and we see who will stand with us." Graves looked at his team, his heart swelling with pride and anticipation. They were facing insurmountable odds, but humanity had done this before. Against all odds, they had survived the darkest times in history, and now they were going to take on the most powerful force in the galaxy. They would make their mark. "We're not asking for their permission," Graves said firmly, looking each of them in the eye. "We are taking our place in the stars, and the Galactic Council will know who we are." The sound of footsteps interrupted their gathering. It was Captain Amanda Foster, a skilled fighter who had led many Special Forces missions in the past. She entered the room, her face set with determination. "We've got word from the underground networks," she said urgently. "Humanity's not just waiting. The Council's ban has sparked something. There are whispers, rumors, and some factions are already making moves. We've got a chance to strike now, before the Council locks everything down." Graves straightened. This was the spark they'd been waiting for. The rebellion was already growing. They weren't alone. "Let's make our move," Graves said, turning back to his team. "Get ready. We leave in 24 hours. The rebellion had begun, and it was time to show the galaxy that humanity wasn't going to stand in the shadows anymore. They would fight for their place, and they would win. The Galactic Council would soon learn the hard way that when you push humanity to the edge, they push back 10 times harder. This part builds the tension and stakes by introducing the scope of humanity's rebellion and their plan to gather resources and allies. The team's determination and the Galactic Council's underestimation of humanity become central themes. The story focuses on the human spirit, resilience, and the belief that against all odds, humanity will rise. The suspense grows as the team begins their preparations, showing their readiness to face an overwhelming foe. The audience is left eagerly anticipating the next steps in this epic struggle. As the rebellion's spark flickered into a flame, the first steps of resistance were anything but easy. With the Galactic Council tightening its grip on the galaxy, humanity had to adapt quickly. The truth was, they weren't starting from a place of strength. They were starting from scratch. But the human spirit, resilient and unpredictable, had already begun to show its power in ways that no one expected. Victor Allen, the former Marine who had unwittingly set this chain of events in motion, stood in front of the underground base, watching the preparations unfold. His mind raced, but the reality of what they were up against weighed heavily on his shoulders. They were only a small group with limited resources. There was no guarantee they could stand against the might of the Galactic Council. Yet his resolve was unwavering. "We have to move quickly," Victor said, his voice low but firm, as he addressed the team in the briefing room. "The Council's fleet is heading toward us, and our window to strike is closing fast." The team had gathered to discuss their next move. The Council was not only technologically advanced, but had centuries of experience in controlling the galaxy. They held the power to wipe humanity off the map, but humanity still had something the Council didn't: ingenuity. Elena, the brilliant tech specialist, was hunched over a table, poring over old blueprints for the Australian ship they had found earlier, one that could hold the key to their future. The ship was an ancient vessel, abandoned long ago by the Australians, a race whose advanced knowledge and technologies had been long forgotten by most of the galaxy. But humanity had discovered something extraordinary. Within the wreckage of that ship lay a treasure trove of alien technology that, if harnessed, could give them the edge they needed. "I've got the ship's systems online," Elena announced, her eyes wide with excitement. This technology is unlike anything we've seen. It's like the ship was designed to interface with human minds. It's almost like it recognizes us." Victor's eyes narrowed. "So it's not just a weapon. It's a tool, something we can control." Elena nodded. "Exactly. This could give us access to a power source we didn't even know existed. a weapon capable of turning the Council's forces into dust. A low hum filled the room as the ship's systems came online. The ancient craft's controls flickered to life, revealing a hidden alien interface that seemed to shift and change depending on who was interacting with it. There was a strange resonance in the air, an odd feeling that humanity was now tied to something far older, far more dangerous than they could ever have imagined. "This is the spark we need," Victor said, his eyes scanning the data. "We can't waste time. The Council's ships will be here within the next 2 days. Once they arrive, they'll sweep the planet and eliminate any signs of rebellion. We have to strike first." But even as he spoke, there was a growing sense of unease. The Astrialian technology they had discovered was incredibly powerful, but it was also unpredictable. They couldn't rely on it fully just yet. They needed more time, but time was something they didn't have. Victor turned to Captain Amanda Foster, who had been silent up until now. She was the team's military leader, and her expertise would be critical in the coming days. "We need a distraction," Amanda said, her voice cold and calculating. "We need to draw the Council's forces away from Earth. If we can make them believe we're attacking other planets, they'll spread their resources thin. That's when we make our move." Victor's expression darkened. "And how exactly do we do that?" Amanda's eyes glinted with a cold, dangerous promise. "We don't just hit one target. We hit several. We send small teams to raise key Council-controlled colonies. We do enough damage to make them think we're coming for everything." Alina, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "That's risky. If the Council figures out our plan too soon, they'll destroy us before we even get a chance to strike back." Victor considered the risks. If the rebellion was to succeed, it needed to be unpredictable. The Council couldn't know where humanity's next move would be. They couldn't afford to play by their rules. The Council expected humanity to cower in fear, but humanity had other plans. "We'll move fast, and we'll move together," Victor said. "We hit them where it hurts. We show them that we're not afraid." The team spent the next few hours preparing for the mission. Supplies were gathered, new weapons were tested, and every possible strategy was discussed. But as the night wore on, a sense of foreboding began to creep into the atmosphere. They knew the stakes. If they failed, it would mean the extinction of their species. At dawn, the first strike took place. The team split into smaller groups and boarded the Astrialian ship, now fully operational. The ship's new systems hummed with power as they left Earth's atmosphere, heading for their first target, an outpost located in a distant galaxy under Council control. The tension was palpable as the team traveled through space. Each member of the crew knew that their survival depended on their ability to move undetected. They had to disable the Council's communication systems to prevent them from calling for reinforcements. As the Council's outpost came into view, the heartbeats of the crew quickened. The stakes were higher than ever. They couldn't afford to fail. Delina ran a final check on the ship's systems. "Everything's ready," she said. Victor glanced at his team one last time. "Remember, we strike fast and get out before anyone knows we were here." The Astrialian ship powered up its engines, cloaking itself in the deep void of space. With one final push, they launched into battle, targeting the core of the outpost and disabling its energy grid. The rebels unleashed explosives and hacked the Council's systems, plunging the base into chaos. But the Council was not blind. Their sensors quickly picked up the disturbance. As the team made their escape, alarms blared across the station. The Council's fleet had already been alerted. They had made their move. But now, the real battle was just beginning. Victor's heart pounded in his chest as the ship blasted through the galaxy. They had only hours before the Council's fleet would arrive on Earth, and the rebellion was now no longer just a whispered rumor. It was a war, and humanity was ready to fight. As they raced back to Earth, the question lingered in the air. Could humanity truly stand against the combined forces of the Galactic Council, or had they just sealed their doom? The rebellion's first strike had shaken the Galactic Council, But it was only the beginning of a much larger battle that lay ahead. Humanity, with all its grit and determination, had struck a blow that no one expected. But the Council was not one to be easily fooled. They would retaliate, and humanity knew this. The danger was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Victor Allen stood before a new projection map, outlining the galaxies that still lay under Council control. His face was grim. The first successful strike had been a victory. But now came the harder part. Staying one step ahead of the Council and ensuring they didn't wipe out the rebellion before it could grow. "We've stirred the hornet's nest," Victor said, pacing in front of the map, "and they're not going to let it slide. The Council will send everything they have at us. We need to stay mobile, stay unpredictable. We can't let them corner us." Alina, her fingers flying over a keyboard, was scanning the data they had stolen from the Council's outpost. It was a goldmine of information: codes, tactics, hidden routes, and weaknesses in the Council's network. There was more to discover, but what they had already uncovered was invaluable. "There's a weak point," Alina said, her voice tinged with excitement. "One of the Council's central fleets is vulnerable. They've just installed a new defensive system, and it's still in testing. If we hit it now, we could cripple their supply lines and take out one of their key divisions." Victor stopped pacing and turned sharply to Alina. "How soon can we get there?" Alina hesitated, tapping a few more commands. "If we leave within the next 12 hours, we can arrive before the Council realizes what's happening. But it's going to be risky. We'll be deep in Council space, and if they detect us, we're as good as dead." The risk was immense, but so was the reward. Disabling the fleet would create a massive hole in the Council's infrastructure, throwing them off balance and giving the rebellion the breathing room it needed. The mission wasn't just important, it was vital. "We don't have time to wait," Victor said, making up his mind. "We leave in 6 hours. Prepare everything. We'll need a small strike force. We can't afford to lose anyone." The tension in the room was palpable. The team knew the risks all too well. Every mission was a gamble. The Galactic Council wasn't an enemy that could be defeated easily, especially not with the small force they had. Yet there was no turning back now. The rebellion had begun, and humanity had already taken its first steps toward breaking free from the Council's iron grip. As the team readied themselves for the mission, the sense of urgency grew. Each member knew their role and what was at stake. But more than that, there was a palpable sense of pride in the air. Humanity had been cast aside, outlawed by the Galactic Council, but they weren't giving up. They were fighting back. Captain Amanda Foster was busy checking the ship's weapon systems, making sure everything was ready for the assault. The Astrialian ship, once an ancient relic, was now humanity's most valuable asset. Its ability to cloak and its advanced technology made it nearly invisible to the Council's sensors, but they couldn't rely solely on that. They needed the element of surprise. "The Council won't be expecting us," Amanda said, adjusting her gear. "We'll be in and out before they even know what hit them. But once we strike, they won't stop coming for us." Victor nodded. "That's the plan. Strike hard, hit their weakest point, and disappear before they can retaliate." Alina, working with the ship's AI, made the final adjustments to the cloaking system. "We should be undetectable," she said, her voice steady. "The only thing we need to worry about is getting there unnoticed." As the hours passed, the tension only grew. The countdown had begun. The crew suited up, readying themselves for the fight of their lives. This mission wasn't just about taking down a fleet. It was about sending a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity would not be intimidated. Humanity would fight for its right to exist among the stars. The Astrialian ship lifted off from the hidden base, its engines humming quietly as it soared into the darkness of space. The crew worked together in perfect synchrony, each person knowing their role to perfection. But as they entered deeper into Council territory, the reality of their mission set in. The Council's fleet was formidable. It was unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. The ships were massive, their weapons capable of decimating entire planets, and their defensive systems were nearly impenetrable. As they approached the target, the ship's cloaking device activated, and the team's breath caught in their throats. They were invisible, but they were also flying blind. They didn't know what awaited them. "We're approaching the target," Amanda said, her voice tight with tension. "Get ready." Victor gave a sharp nod. "On my mark." We hit them hard and fast. We disable their communication systems first, then take out their power source. Let's make them feel our presence. The ship glided closer to the Council fleet, the crew watching their instruments with bated breath. Every moment was critical. The Council had patrols scattered all around, and any mistake could mean their capture or death. "We're almost there," Elena said, her fingers dancing across the console. "Ready to engage." Victor's heart raced, but his face remained calm. This was it. This was the moment they had been preparing for. If they succeeded, they would take out a critical piece of the Council's military might. If they failed, well, failure wasn't an option. "Mark." Victor barked. In an instant, the ship's weapons fired, targeting the enemy fleet's weak points. The explosions were deafening. The shockwaves felt across the space surrounding the ships. For a brief moment, the Council's fleet was thrown into chaos. The Australian ship moved swiftly, firing again and again, tearing through the Council's defensive shields. But the Council wasn't going to be caught off guard for long. The fleet's response was swift, and within seconds, their defensive shields began to regenerate. The Australian ship couldn't hold out forever. "Engage the cloaking device again," Elena shouted. "We need to get out of here now." The ship's systems hummed as the cloaking device engaged, rendering them invisible once more. But the damage had been done. The Council fleet was crippled, their communication systems were down, and their power source was a fraction of what it had been. As the Australian ship shot off into the stars, the team exchanged glances. They had done it. But the Council would be hunting them now. They had no time to celebrate. "This is just the beginning," Victor said, his voice steady despite the chaos they had just caused. "We've sent a message, and now they'll know. Humanity is coming for them, and we won't stop." The war had only just begun. And humanity, despite all odds, was ready to resist as the Australian ship soared through space. The reality of their success began to settle in. The first strike had been a success. They had dealt a blow to the Galactic Council, crippled a key fleet, and sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. But as the adrenaline from the battle began to wear off, the weight of what was to come settled heavily on the crew. Victor Allen sat in the captain's chair, his eyes scanning the vast emptiness of space. They had made it out of the Council's territory, but the mission had been far from easy. It was only a matter of time before the Council retaliated. Humanity's rebellion had begun, but it was still fragile, still vulnerable. Every move they made from here on out would be watched carefully, and one wrong step could lead to their destruction. "This victory will be short-lived," Amanda Foster said, her voice sharp and steady as she entered the control room. "The Council will retaliate. They'll throw everything they have at us." Victor turned his head to meet her gaze. "We knew this wouldn't be easy, but this is only the beginning. We've hit them where it hurts. Now we need to stay ahead of them." Elena, who had been quietly monitoring the ship's systems, spoke up. "I've been tracking the Council's movements, and I'm picking up signs of increased activity near Earth. They know something's happened, and they're mobilizing." "Of course they are," Victor muttered, his mind working through the possibilities. "The Council won't sit idly by. We need to prepare for a counterattack. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." The Australian ship hummed softly as it glided through the vast emptiness of space. They were far from Earth, but that didn't mean they were safe. The Council had ships scattered throughout the galaxy, and any one of them could be within range. Victor's thoughts turned to Earth, their home, their last refuge. The rebellion had started small, but it was growing, and fast. With the help of the Astrialian technology, they were finding new ways to fight back against the Council's superior forces. But no matter how powerful they became, they were still the underdogs in this war. The Council was vast, with resources and technology far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. "We need a plan," Amanda said, cutting through Victor's thoughts. "We need to hit them harder. We've shown them we're not afraid to strike. Now we need to go on the offensive." Victor nodded slowly, considering her words. "I agree. We've already made our mark, but we need to be smarter from here on out. We need to target their weakest points, the ones they think are secure." Elena's fingers danced over the ship's control panel as she sifted through data. "I'm finding something interesting. The Council has been spreading its fleet thin. They're overextended, trying to hold on to as much territory as possible. There are several vulnerable points in their defense. If we hit those, we could do some serious damage." Victor's eyes gleamed with determination. "We've got the Astrialian ship. We've got the element of surprise. We don't need to take them head-on. We just need to hit fast and hard, and then disappear before they even know what happened." The crew was quiet for a moment, absorbing the weight of their next mission. They were no longer just a handful of rebels fighting for survival. They were a growing threat to the Galactic Council, and with each victory, they were gaining momentum. Elena pulled up a map of the galaxy on the ship's console. "Here," she said, pointing to a cluster of planets far from Earth. "The Council has a major supply depot here, a critical node in their supply lines. If we take it out, it could disrupt their entire fleet. They'll lose resources, reinforcements, and the ability to maintain their control over the rest of the galaxy." Victor looked over the map. The depot was well guarded, but that didn't scare him. They had the Astrialian technology, and they had the advantage of surprise. This could be their next big move. "We take out the depot, and we hit them where it hurts," Victor said. "But we have to move quickly. The longer we wait, the more time they have to regroup." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "You're planning on hitting a major depot without knowing the full extent of their defenses." Victor's eyes hardened with resolve. "The Council doesn't know how far we're willing to go. We strike fast, hit hard, and get out before they even know what happened. It's risky, but it's the only way we can take the fight to them." Elena gave him a quick nod. "We'll be ready. I'll prep the ship for a deep space jump, but we'll need to move fast. Once we disable the depot, we can't stick around for long." Victor turned to the rest of the crew, his eyes meeting each of theirs. "This is it. The next move will be our most dangerous yet. We may not get another chance like this. So, let's make it count. We show the Council we're not just going to lie down and accept their control. We fight, and we fight to win." The crew dispersed to prepare for the mission. The air was thick with tension, but there was also a sense of unity, a sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, they felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves. Victor stared out into the stars, his thoughts on Earth, on the rebellion, and on the uncertain future that lay ahead. The war wasn't over, far from it. But humanity had taken its first steps toward freedom, and nothing was going to stop them now. The Astrialian ship darted through the dark expanse of space, its sleek form barely visible against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside the ship, the tension was thick, and the crew was focused, each person silently preparing for the mission ahead. The stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Council had outlawed humanity, and now the rebels had to show the universe that humanity's thirst for freedom could not be contained. Victor Allen, standing at the helm, glanced at the crew as they carry out their final checks. Elena was at the communication station, her fingers flying over the keys, keeping an eye on any incoming transmissions. Amanda Foster was already suited up in her combat gear, preparing for the infiltration, and the rest of the team was ready to follow through with the plan. "It's a clean run," Elena reported, looking up from her console. "The Council's supply depot is within range. "We'll be there in 20 minutes." Victor nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. The Council was a force beyond anything humanity had encountered before. It wasn't just their technology or their military might that made them so dangerous. It was their arrogance. They had ruled the galaxy for eons, and they believed they could squash anything that posed a threat to their control. But humanity had something they didn't: determination. And that determination was about to send a shockwave across the galaxy. As the Australian ship approached the supply depot, the crew worked in unison, running through their roles one final time. The depot was heavily fortified. Council patrols were scattered across the area, and they had surveillance systems that could track any movement within a vast radius. The mission wasn't just about striking hard, it was about staying invisible long enough to take the depot down, then escape without being detected. The moment of truth arrived. Amanda turned to Victor, her eyes locked on his. "We ready?" Victor's lips curled into a determined smile. "Ready." The ship slowed as it approached the depot's perimeter, cloaking itself against the Council's sensors. They had moments to execute the mission. If they failed, there would be no escape. If they succeeded, it could cripple the Council's supply lines and send a message to the entire galaxy. Alina worked her magic, her fingers tapping commands that would initiate the first phase of their attack. The Australian ship's cloaking system was its greatest asset, but even that wouldn't last long once they engage. They had no time to waste. Commencing first phase, Alina said as a low hum vibrated through the ship. She activated the EMP pulse, targeting the depot's communication systems. Within seconds, the lights in the depot flickered, and the defensive shields began to waver. The first blow was struck. Amanda was the first to move. She swiftly made her way to the airlock, preparing for the infiltration. "Let's make it count," she muttered to herself. Victor stood by the command panel, eyes scanning the holographic map. "We've disabled the comms," he said, "but that's just the start. Now we hit their power source. Alina, any updates?" Alina's eyes darted to her monitor. "We got a few minutes before they reboot their systems. The depot's power core is on the far side. If we hit that, it'll take down their shields for good." Victor clenched his fists. This was their moment. If they could disable the power core, it would send a ripple effect throughout the entire fleet. The Council's power would be shattered, and their response would be delayed. As Amanda prepared to infiltrate, Alina initiated the next phase of the mission. The Australian ship moved into position above the depot, and a small strike team, including Amanda, was deployed. They would board the depot on foot, destroy the power source, and return to the ship before the Council had time to recover. The strike team moved swiftly, crouching low, staying in the shadows. They had trained for moments like this, moments where the smallest misstep could be their last. But they had something the Council didn't: a fierce will to survive, a drive to fight for what was right. Inside the depot, the team found their way to the central control room. The air was thick with tension, every footstep echoing on the cold metallic floor. Amanda led the charge, moving from cover to cover. The door to the control room was locked, but it wasn't a challenge for Alina, who had already hacked into the system from the Australian ship. "Done." Alina's voice crackled through the comms. "You're in." As the door slid open, the team moved in quickly. They could hear the faint hum of the power core in the center of the room, its steady pulse filling the air. Amanda moved forward, placing explosives around the core, her fingers steady despite the pressure mounting around her. "There's no turning back now," she muttered, setting the timer. "Let's finish this." With a final glance around, she gave the signal. The team retreated swiftly, back to the ship's exit point. The timer on the explosives was set for 5 minutes, plenty of time, but only just. The ship waited, cloaked, above the depot, ready for the moment they'd make their escape. The seconds ticked down, the crew holding their breath. The tension was suffocating. The power core exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves throughout the depot. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered violently as the Council's shields collapsed. The depot was in chaos. The Astrialian ship dropped its cloak and surged forward, engines roaring to life. "Get us out of here," Victor barked. Full speed ahead. The ship shot away from the burning wreckage of the Council depot, but their victory was bittersweet. The Council would retaliate. They were now marked for destruction. As the Astrialian ship hurtled through the vast reaches of space, the crew shared no words of triumph. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Their message had been sent, and now the Galactic Council would know. Humanity was not finished. They were just getting started.